In the South China Sea, smaller maritime nations are being routinely pushed out of their own waters. The strategy relies on physical mass and intimidation, deploying massive Coast Guard vessels to crowd and overwhelm the ships of neighboring countries in gray zone conflicts. To effectively push back against this level of territorial encroachment, a nation needs to project serious force. But for most ASEAN countries, building a blue water navy capable of matching fleets of this scale, complete with aircraft carriers and multi-ship escorts, is a financial impossibility. For decades, India faced a similar defensive vulnerability. They held the title of the world's largest arms importer, relying almost entirely on foreign powers to supply their military. Recently, however, the country has executed a massive domestic manufacturing overhaul to reverse that dependency. The Indian Army is currently procuring hundreds of these domestically produced Dhanush howitzers to fortify their borders, proving that their internal defense industry is now capable of producing high-level hardware at scale. With their own borders increasingly secured by indigenous weapons, India is no longer restricted to playing a purely defensive game. They are actively stepping into the regional power vacuum, ready to equip smaller nations against shared adversaries. This marks a calculated strategy of geopolitical retaliation. By weaponizing its growing defense exports, India is selectively arming the direct adversaries of its primary rivals. The primary tool for this strategy is the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile. While the missile was developed as a joint venture, Moscow has officially assured New Delhi that it has no objection to exporting this precision weapon to strategically sensitive nations, specifically including Vietnam and Indonesia. These exports create a strategic maritime shield for the buyer, allowing smaller nations to neutralize a superpower's naval dominance without the burden of maintaining a traditional fleet. The mechanics of the BrahMos explain why it is in such high demand. Powered by a unique ramjet engine, it sustains operational speeds between Mach 2.8 and Mach 3, 3 times the speed of sound. This trajectory graph highlights its secondary advantage, a sea-skimming slight profile. The missile drops to an extremely low altitude, hugging the surface of the water to fly under standard early warning radar cones. These capabilities were successfully validated during Operation Sindhu. In that offensive, the BrahMos bypassed and reportedly blinded highly advanced Chinese-made radar systems deployed in Pakistan, leaving defensive networks completely unresponsive. By combining near-hypersonic speed with near invisibility, the BrahMos turns any stretch of vulnerable coastline into a lethal barrier. Interception becomes almost mathematically impossible, forcing any invading fleet to recalculate the risk of approaching the shore. The first nation to adopt this capability was the Philippines, securing a $375 million contract for 3 coastal batteries. These systems are already deployed and have successfully demonstrated integration with allied U.S. systems. That initial sale triggered a rapid regional reaction. A $629 million deal with Vietnam is now finalized, and a $300 to $450 million agreement with Indonesia is in the final stages of negotiation. Looking at this map of Southeast Asia reveals the strategic value of these locations. Placing batteries on Indonesian shores positions them directly adjacent to 3 critical maritime choke points, the Malacca, Sunda, and Lombok Straits. As the 450-kilometer range rings radiate from the coastlines, they intersect and completely lock down these passages. This establishes a military doctrine known as anti-access area denial, or A2/AD, using long-range weapons to block an adversary from entering a strategic zone. These specific shipping lanes are densely packed with commercial tankers and essential supply lines. Holding unilateral control over who can safely navigate these waters poses a direct threat to the Chinese economy. This resulting string of missiles creates an asymmetric advantage. It enables a loose coalition of smaller ASEAN nations to effectively box in and trap a vastly larger naval force. The Mediterranean has become the second theater for this defensive encirclement. During Operation Sindhu, Turkey operated as a primary backer of Pakistan. In response, India has begun cultivating defense ties with Turkey's direct adversaries. High-level negotiations are currently underway to supply the BrahMos, along with various loitering munitions, directly to Greece and the island nation of Cyprus. Stationing these supersonic coastal batteries on Mediterranean islands would severely restrict Turkish naval movements. It directly neutralizes their aggressive blue homeland maritime expansion doctrine, creating a hard, impassable boundary around their fleet. India is systematically identifying the foreign financial and military backers of its enemies and placing lethal, undeniable deterrents directly in their respective backyards. This chart tracks the financial reality of this policy. Over the last year, Indian defense exports experienced a massive 61% upward trend, hitting a record $4.2 billion as global demand surges. For years, Beijing utilized a string-of-pearls tactic, building commercial and military infrastructure across the Indian Ocean to surround India. Today, they face a mirrored retaliation. Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh describes the overriding policy as trusted interdependence. The government is ensuring that its most advanced, top-tier weapons are shared exclusively with friendly nations to construct reliable, localized defense networks. India's emergence as a strategic exporter marks a reversal of its decades-long reliance on foreign arms. By selectively arming a network of regional partners, New Delhi is shifting the balance of power within contested waters across the globe.